Hey friends, come right in out of the rain. We've got a nice fire going here, and we have a marvelous prophetic legend from 2 Kings chapter 6 to talk about and introduce. The story of the young man at Dothan and Elisha, and Elisha's triumph over the forces of Syria, the Aramean army that comes and surrounds this town that he and the young man are staying in, this town of Dothan in northern Israel. I think you're going to enjoy studying 2 Kings chapter 6. It's quite a treat, so come on in, relax, and let's get into it. Turn now to 2 Kings 6 and the story of Elisha and the young man at Dothan, the amazing account of the prophet's opening the young man's eyes so that he can see God's chariots of fire protecting the city. With eyes newly opened, Elisha's young man can lose his fear in the enemy Syrian army currently surrounding the town of Dothan. This story in 2 Kings 6 is a really fun one to look at, not only because it gives you huge insights into what it means to have a theological imagination, what it means to read a text theologically, but also because we have this great sermon by Henry Perry Lyddon, a spectacular Anglican homilist who lived from 1829 to 1890. Lyddon was one of the great preachers on the Old Testament in our denominational tradition, the Anglican tradition. So with this passage, we get to read and discuss a sermon from one of our Episcopalian ancestors who really knew how to do expository preaching on the Old Testament. And not only that, but with this text, we've also got this amazing artwork by our own Peggy Parker, VTS artist extraordinaire, adjunct professor, illustrating the scene of the story of the young man having his eyes opened. It's a compelling and lovely image that she's created with the prophet Elisha, his hand on the young man's back, and the young man coming to have the blinders being removed from his eyes so that he can see into the reality of God. Henry Perry Lyddon, in his sermon, is going to argue that that vision is not some sort of subjective inner construct, some sort of human creative insight, as if theology is an imaginative human projection with no real substantive referent. Contrary to the new modernism that Lyddon is pushing back against, theology is anything but what each person or each religion can intuit and surmise. No, the young man is much closer to a scientist, Lyddon will argue, a scientist looking through a telescope for the first time, seeing a reality that was there all along, but could never have been dreamed in a state of dread at this enemy Syrian siege of the city. What we must envision, Lyddon preaches, is no blind faith arising within the young man, but the young man having the scales in his eyes fall away to reveal a transcendent reality, to reveal larger spheres of existence far beyond what human perception unaided can normally envisage. So let's listen to the story as it's read dramatically in an excellent audio Bible. I've picked out a few images to go with the reading, so sit back and enjoy, and then we'll probe into some of the details in preparation for your own analysis of the text.
Now, the king of Syria was making war against Israel, and he consulted with his servants, saying, "My camp will be in such and such a place." And the man of God sent to the king of Israel,
"Beware that you do not pass this place, for the Syrians are coming down there."
Then the king of Israel sent someone to the place of which the man of God had told him. Thus he warned him, and he was watchful there, not just once or twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was greatly troubled by this thing, and he called his servants and said to them,
Will you not show me which of us is for the king of Israel?
None, my lord, O king. But Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom.
Go and see where he is, that I may send and get him.
Surely he is in Dothan.
Therefore he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And when the servant of the man of God arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him,
Alas, my master, what shall we do?
Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them.
And Elisha prayed.
Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see.
Then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So when the Syrians came down to him, Elisha prayed to the Lord,
Strike this people, I pray, with blindness.
and he struck them with blindness, according to the word of Elisha. Now Elisha said to them,
This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the men whom you seek.
But he led them to Samaria. So it was, when they had come to Samaria, that Elisha said,
Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see.
And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw. And there they were, inside Samaria.
Now, the story does not simply end with the young man being able to see the chariots of fire and the Bible reader getting a very good lesson on the nature of coming to faith. After the young man and we as readers are brought into this larger vision, this larger theological imagination, the Aramean army does in fact invade Dothan. At this point, the emphasis on seeing and not seeing in the passage becomes even more interesting. Starting back in verse 13, when the Syrian king orders that someone go and see where Elisha is, we get 6 instances of the Hebrew verb ra'ah and 4 instances of hine, the particle of vivid imagination. Now in verse 18, we have this really interesting phenomenon whereby somehow the Aramean army is not simply blinded, but in fact bedazzled. They come into contact with ultimate reality, just as Elisha's young man does. But in their case, such contact leads not to insight, but to disorientation. Now, if you were just reading the text without any insight into the Hebrew, you might think that they were just blinded by a very strong, bright light. But the Hebrew is special. The soldiers are so theologically unimaginative and so spiritually weak-eyed that they are unable to even recognize who Elisha is. They don't even know that they're in Dothan. If it was just some super strong light shining in their eyes and they're not being able to see, they would certainly still know that they had traveled to Dothan. But because they are bedazzled, because spiritual fortitude is just not there, Elisha fools them into marching all the way to Samaria, the capital, where they're in danger of being killed by the king.
Bad flamingo.